Welcome to the LifenGeer podcast. I always wanted to start it that way.
Hey everyone, welcome to the LifenGeer podcast where truth leads, joy, and adventure. I'm your host, Justin. I'm here with Kevin.
Hey, welcome to the LifenGeer podcast.
Goodness, you're killing me, Smalls.
This is the best start of the podcast ever. We have completely lost professionality in this podcast.
Professionality?
I think I made up that word, but I think you all like it.
No. Professionalism.
Oh, we've lost all professionalism.
There we go.
In the professionality world.
Hey, we got an episode. We're excited about it as always, but let's talk about life. What have you been up to?
We are coming into the summer. I got the biggest trip coming up that I have been on with my Jeep. Very excited about it. Yeah, I'm doing the Rubicon Trail. I'm going to drive down the Oregon coast. In fact, this is our June podcast. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll get to tell you a little bit about it in our August podcast. So that's going to be fun because they come back in July.
Oh, yeah.
But it's going to be awesome. So
dude,
that's coming up.
I'm not going to lie. Yesterday, you left work, and I saw you pull out, and I was like, that's a cool-looking Jeep. Bro, that thing.
Were you looking at mine or Tanya's?
Tanya's is cool, too. Yeah. But she was already gone. You because you're blacked out. And then,
last night, late last night. Yeah.
And then you got that black Jeep, and it's lifted with those big old wheels on it. I'm like, okay.
37-inch wheels, in case you're listening and are curious. Just did a metal cloak lift, 3.5 inches. Changed the drive line on it. Dude. So I got a new drive shaft in the front.
I'm so proud of you. Like, you're doing all this stuff yourself and with your buddies.
I have a couple buddies that help me out that are my experts in the field, but I love doing it. I'm learning. Cool. I've learned a lot. You asked me, months ago, I would have known, years ago, I would have known nothing, but I'm having fun. Learning a lot.
So cool.
What have you been up to?
Just living life, loving it. It's been nice. My kids are finally done with sports.
Nice.
I did not realize until it was done how busy we were with sports. Like, my oldest daughter, from the beginning of the school year till 3 weeks ago, she was in some type of sporting event. Oh, and it's funny because she was like, I'm burnt out. Yeah, and I'm tired. like, so just rest.
There's a lady on our staff. I might have shared this on the podcast before. I might have shared this in the last episode, but she gave us some of the best advice when we had young kids. It's terrible and hilarious all at the same time. Tanya knows where I'm going because she knows what I'm going to say. And this lady on our staff, who has older kids, she goes, just pray your kids are mediocre at everything.
That's awesome.
Isn't that great?
Did you do that?
No, they were just naturally mediocre.
No, they're not. You kids are awesome. That's
awesome. Yeah, sure. You can be awesome and mediocre. So they don't have to be the best of the best. So, but no, it's hilarious.
Oh no, it's been cool though. That was fun. Like I said, I didn't realize how busy we were. But Cannon is into skateboarding now.
Oh, there you go.
And that's awesome.
And you have health insurance, so that's perfect.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool to watch him. He's like, his newest thing is he's doing drop-ins on a 5-foot ramp. So like this thing is like 5 feet tall and he's dropping in on a skateboarder. Dude's only like 9 years old.
When you go to say 5 feet tall, your voice goes like 5 octaves higher.
5 feet
That's
tall.
Hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That was cute.
I am total proud dad.
Yeah.
With my kids now.
Like, because
they're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm showing my family, my friends, just check out this video of Cannon and look at Arya playing basketball,
Now, do you post much on social media, those things?
No.
Why not?
Honestly, I just don't think about it.
Yeah. There's different kinds of parents out there. There's parents who post, like, their social media is just a fan reel of their children.
Right.
And so, their kid spits. And they're like, look at our child and spit, Right. And then there's these kids who they aren't part of, they don't post anything about their kids. You're like, you have kids?
Right.
I never even knew that. What category do you fit into that?
I'm more in the latter. So, we just ran into an old friend that we hadn't seen for a while, and she saw our kids. She's like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe how big they are. You guys are always so private and not posting anything on social media. I'm like, it's not that I don't want to. I just don't think about it. Yeah. I think for part of it, though, is I went a long time of being very active on social media and a long time ago, and I don't know if I just burned myself out on it, but it's not like I'm like trying to hide things. I just don't have.
Is social media on the decrease?
No.
I don't post nearly as much as I used to.
No.
I know more about other people's kids than my own based on their social media. That's a lie.
That's a lie. We're in different stages of life, though, too.
Yeah, that is true.
So I don't know. No, social media is still very. I mean, we talked about it before. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but how social media for churches is becoming the front door even more so than like a website.
Yeah. Well, and I know that a lot of people, they can get anxiety about what to post and I get to post. And man, in the last couple of years, because of my busyness of my doctoral work and leading the church and all of that, I have hardly posted anything. I just don't have the bandwidth to think about posting.
Right.
And it will be interesting to see as I finish my dissertation this summer if I make a shift and I start posting again.
Oh, yeah.
That will be interesting. But I'll tell you what, anxiety is a big thing in this world.
Dude.
And it guides a lot of people and directs a lot of people on how to live. We should probably talk about that someday.
We should.
What's the antithesis?
Ooh, someone's getting their doctorate.
Oh, I should get a sound effects for that. Thank you.
She was giving you a real clap, though.
She started clapping for real, and I'm like, nobody can hear that. But they can see it if you're watching on YouTube.
You didn't know
YouTube cameras. What is the antithesis of anxiety? I want whatever that is. That's what I want in my life.
Define antithesis.
Shut up.
Define it.
What is the opposite? What is the like if you have a good guy, the antithesis is the bad guy. If you are going, that's about as far as I can define.
Okay.
The rest I have to use Chat GPT. What is the antithesis, the counterbalance to that? Well, so I want we should someday do a podcast on the antithesis of anxiety.
What would that podcast be about? What is the antithesis of anxiety?
Peace.
Oh, I think we're going to talk about that this episode.
You want to do that? You want to do it today?
Let's wing it.
Let's wing it right now.
No notes, and let's just go for it.
Okay, we're going to talk about today's podcast is on peace.
Okay. Speak from your heart. Okay. Don't look at your laptop.
Okay.
Don't look at your iPad. Just speak from your heart.
We're going to talk about peace today, everybody. And you might think, this is going to be a boring episode. This is going to be a powerful episode. Let me give a visual just to set us up to get us going as we jump into this. Okay. You ready to jump into it?
Let's do it. I'm diving in.
Okay. Oh, I like it. There you go. Think of there was a time in the Bible where Jesus is in the boat sleeping. Okay, in the middle of a horrible storm. Yeah, the boat is being rocked back and forth. Now get this. All the scripture says, the Bible says, all of the disciples are freaking out in the boat.
They have anxiety.
Sorry,
I stole your thunder.
No. That's perfect. That's what I want. You think Jesus has anxiety?
Do I think that? I don't think so.
Not at the time. He has.
He's sleeping.
No, yeah. But in this moment, he doesn't.
No.
There is a place in the Bible where we do see the anxiety of Jesus. We can talk about that another time. In the Garden of Gethsemane, when he is about to be crucified, you see the anxiety. It just anxiety wasn't in the driver's seat. We'll talk about that later.
Right.
I think. I mean, it's not in my notes, but Jesus, all circumstances around him are chaos.
Yeah.
He is at peace.
Yeah.
And they wake him up and they're frustrated with him for sleeping in the middle of it, which I think is interesting. Anxious people get upset with peaceful people.
That's good.
That's a concept that a lot of people don't always recognize because they have peace in the moment, and anxiety is contagious. If you're feeling anxious about something, you want others to match your anxious.
Join me on the dark side, anxiety side.
Or they become upset with him.
Yeah.
They become upset with Jesus, who has peace in the boat. And he stands up and he says, peace. He speaks to the wind and the wave. Peace, be still.
Yeah.
Or in a different translation than the King James, in the NLT, it's calm. He just speaks calm to the situation or peace. So I think let's talk about this concept when all of the water around you is the wave. The waves are upset. The water is upset and stirred up. How can we have the peace that can calm, or peace in the storm?
Yeah.
And how do we get that, and where do we get that? Because here's the truth. Anxiety, everybody has it.
Yeah.
Everybody, now here's an interesting point. Everybody has the antithesis of peace, which is?
Antithesis of peace?
Yeah.
Anxiety.
Everyone has it. What's important is where you put it. Where do you put anxiety? Well, I think there's in our world.
We should use an analogy right here.
Well, thank you for setting me up.
I think the analogy should be a car.
Okay, I'm going to go with the car. You just throw me the analogy and I'll go with it. A lot of people have anxiety in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that either means they don't do anything because the anxiety is not going to drive, but it's in the driver's seat. And so it's just going to stop you from doing what you know you need to do.
Yeah.
Or what you want to do or what you hope to do or what you dream to do. Can't go anywhere because anxiety is in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Anxiety should never be in the driver's seat. When anxiety is in the driver's seat, it's very unhealthy. And by the way, we're talking about an anxiety that we all wrestle with day to day. You know, there is some anxiety that is chemically driven.
Yeah.
That you need to be medicated on. That's not what we're talking about. That's more of a mental health kind of a concept. But we're just talking about mental health when it comes to manageable anxiety. And I will go on the record on the podcast to say this. Most anxiety can be managed. The exception is some needs to be medicated.
Sure.
We over-medicate it because it's a simple answer.
Yeah.
And I'm not against medicine.
Right.
But most of us don't know how, and I'm going to talk about the reason why this podcast to me is huge. Most people are settling, and I'll make a case for this in a minute. Most people are settling for a counterfeit piece that anxiety eventually withers away.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, no, and they don't know how to handle it, so they have to take a medicine.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of peace that can quiet anxiety.
Yeah.
That this podcast is going to talk about. Again, with understanding the exception, there is some that needs to be medicated.
If anxiety is in the driver's seat, would you say that's stealing quality of life?
I would say when anxiety is in the driver's seat, it is stealing most of your life. Because you're not going where you want to go. You're going where anxiety is driving you.
Yeah.
See, that's why it's in the driver's seat. That's important.
Yeah.
I also think sometimes, though, it's maybe if you struggle with anxiety, it's not in the driver's seat. It's in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And when it's in the passenger seat,
oh man, it's just gabbing at you.
It's giving you the directions.
Yeah.
And then you follow the directions of what's sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
It's going, well, it's just speaking. Maybe that's not driving you, and you're battling it more. I want to go where I want, but your anxiety is speaking and giving the directions. You know, that steals your life.
Yeah.
Anxiety belongs in the back seat. Yeah. And why do I say in the back seat? Because every one of us is going to deal with anxiety. Once again, Jesus even dealt with anxiety. It belongs in the back seat. And the reason why I think it belongs in the back seat is because you're foolish to think that you're not going to have it at times. So you need to be aware of it. It just can't lead in any way. Nobody wants a backseat driver either.
No.
So sometimes you need to turn around to your anxiety and just tell it to shut up. Or you're going to stop the car, give it a whooping. I don't know if that's legal anymore, but maybe it should be, and that's why we have as much anxiety that we have.
I mean, it's healthy parenting.
It's in the right, appropriate, loving
So the
way.
back seat, not the trunk?
No, because I think trunk is, I don't have it, and you live in a false world of, no, you do. Be aware of it.
Sure.
Be aware that this is that this creates anxiety. So let's talk about what is something in your life that's spur of the moment. Since you just threw this topic at me, what is spur of the moment something that causes you anxiety?
Oh man, finances at time.
Finances, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a big one for a lot of us.
Yeah, stop you from sleeping sometimes.
Not me.
No, you can sleep on anything.
Yeah, I can sleep on it.
Me
but
too.
It changes.
I put my mask on for my CPAP. I'm out. It's like a pacifier for life.
Yeah, no, but like it changes my thought process through the day. It distracts me.
Oh, very good. That's a great answer, Justin. Yeah. You know what's this is so stupid. You know what causes me anxiety? Dentist. I struggle with it every time.
Why? Is it a lot of work when you go to the dentist?
I don't like opening my mouth and having strangers put their hands in my mouth. That's never. I don't like hearing.
That is one of the best impersonations of anything you've ever done.
We're going to have to put a trigger warning for people that are afraid of the dentist.
You just gave so many people anxiety.
I hate that sound. And so
he starts crying. I hate that sound.
I don't like the dentist. And every, here's the other reason. Every time, and I'm a teeth brusher, and most of the time a flosser.
I feel like you're lying.
I floss when I go to the dentist.
Oh, and they probably tell you to floss every single time.
But I do like mouthwash. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, and I'm supposed. Oh, every time I go to the dentist, I hear bad news. Because I have my father's teeth.
So you're blaming your father for this.
And he has his mother's teeth, and she doesn't have teeth. So you can see the trajectory.
We're doomed. We're going down the ship, Captain.
How was the LifenGeer podcast? It created anxiety. What was the topic on? Peace.
The dentist is the topic.
So I think anxiety. I think anxiety needs to be in the backseat.
Yeah,
you're aware of it. We're not ignoring it.
Yeah,
but we're not going to let it drive or give us directions on how to do life.
Yeah.
So what do? Well, I think everybody wants peace. Here's the tension, and this podcast. Here's the trigger alert.
Yeah,
I'm going to give more probably Bible and Jesus in this podcast than any of my other podcasts.
I feel like you need to explain why, though.
Okay, because we want to talk about peace.
Yeah.
And there's only one source of peace. And I think what a lot of people do is the world wants peace, and peace of mind and peace of heart, and I'll talk about that in a second. And Jesus is the author and the source of peace. So I can't do a valid podcast on teaching you how to think so that you can have a peaceful life, when in the reality I know that it's temporary.
Is this a fair statement? And maybe it's a bold statement. We can't experience true peace without Jesus.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
And for some, there's going to be pushback on that.
Yeah.
Let me give you the words of Jesus. It's found in John chapter 14, verse 27. Here's what it says. I'm leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. I'm going to come back to that concept right there, but I'll give you a forecasting of it. Peace has to be in two places at once. Not one place.
Yeah.
Mind and heart. We're going to break both of those down.
Yeah.
Now, watch what Jesus says in this next verse. And this is why I have to do the podcast this way.
Yeah.
And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give.
That's powerful.
That's a strong statement.
Yeah.
Because this is it. Now, go back to the boat scene.
Mm-hmm.
The peace that Jesus gives is a peace that you sleep in the middle of a storm.
Wow.
It's a powerful peace.
Yeah.
Because he genuinely had it.
Yeah.
And then here's what he says. Because, man, if you're not a Jesus follower, just listen to what he says here, because he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what he goes. So don't be troubled or afraid. Yeah. That's his next phrase. I'm going to give you a peace that the world cannot give.
Yeah.
So don't be alarmed by it.
That's crazy.
It's going to give you actually peace. And I'm going to give you one more verse just to set us up, and then we'll talk about the ways to do this. 2 Thessalonians 3:16 says, may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times in every situation.
Yeah.
And here's what I love about that. Go back to the storm situation again. Asleep in the boat.
Yeah.
So what they're talking about is proven.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus had, and doesn't mean he didn't have anxiety. Again, Garden of Gethsemane.
Sure. Yeah.
He's about to be crucified. We read that he's the capillaries in his forehead because of stress are breaking and bleeding because he's about to die, about to be crucified. He gets it.
Yeah.
He even says, because I don't want to paint Jesus as non-human. He's 100% human.
Yeah.
So he has anxiety in the back seat.
Yeah.
He just keeps it in the back seat. And how do I know that? Because he says in the prayer, he says, Father, if there's any other way to do this, let this cup pass from me.
Yeah.
And then he says, this is powerful, but if it's your will. So you know what he did? He took anxiety from the passenger seat and stuck it in the back seat.
So good.
That's what he did right there.
So good.
He goes, I'm not going to let you tell me which direction to go in the back seat.
That's so good.
I'm going where my Father wants me to go.
Yeah.
That's peace.
Yeah.
Right there. That's what we want to talk about. How every listener can have a peace that passes understanding, a peace that is incomprehensible, that when the world looks at you, they're going to be a little bit more frustrated with you because you don't have peace. And can I just sort of do a charge towards some Christians out there that call themselves believers. It's people who claim to be believers in Jesus, but they don't have peace. I think they need to look at their faith.
Yeah.
And they start losing their peace. Too many believers lose their peace over local and federal elections. Elections, politics, who's running for the Republican president or the Democrat should not cause you to lose peace. And if it causes you to lose peace, here's what I'll say to anybody. You're putting your you're putting your hope in the wrong stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Ooh, that was a freebie. That's not even in my notes, Justin.
This is all freebies.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
When I was 7 years old, I experienced the same kind of peace that Jesus experienced.
Oh, tell us about it.
I slept through Hurricane Hugo.
So did I.
Are you serious?
No, for real.
Are you being serious right now? Where were you at during Hurricane Hugo?
I was in Seattle. Okay. But I slept like a baby while Hurricane Hugo.
I was like, where were you at? I was in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And we stayed at my grandparents' house. We were in the utility room, put a mattress over the top of us.
Shut up.
I went to sleep, knocked out. They woke me up during the eye of the storm. We went out during the eye of the storm, checked it out because it's really cool to be out in the middle of the storm.
Wait. Were you, the eye of the storm went over right where you were at?
Yeah. Dude, it was the coolest thing.
That is awesome.
I remember it. Like,
Could you see the sky?
Yeah. Oh. I'm like you right now. I don't remember that part, but I remember the tree in my grandparents' yard being blown this way. And then we go back inside. I fall back asleep again. Wake up, go out. The tree fell over the opposite way.
That's incredible.
Isn't that crazy? So I had that same kind of peace.
Well, you know what? If we can take that, you were how old? 7 years old?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, around 7, 8, yeah.
That's you. Everything's 8 with you.
But here's what's neat about that. The scripture calls it childlike faith. And maybe that's what we need. That's a good word there, Justin. Yeah. Childlike faith to have a peace is interesting. That's a beautiful. Let me define peace. Peace is a completeness or a wholeness. It's like it's all is good in the middle of the storm because of where your peace comes from. And peace has to be found in two places. So I said these two earlier. Yeah. You have to have peace of mind and peace of heart, or peace of heart and peace in the mind. And the battlefront. Am I doing it backwards?
Well, the first time you got it right, and then you reversed it.
When I preach, I will often go, you have to have peace of mind, and I'll touch my heart.
Right.
And I go, you have to have peace of heart, and I'll touch my mind. That's crazy. Oh, this is only for the YouTube watchers. And but if one doesn't have it at both places, they don't have peace.
So that's not true peace then.
That's not true peace.
If we're settled in our heart, we're like, this just feels good, but our mind is still rattling,
that's not
true peace.
Because the battle for peace is a two-front battle. It's raging in your mind and in your heart at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back to that very first word I read, Jesus understood this. He was the greatest psychologist that's ever walked the planet. He goes, I'm leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. Yeah. He understood that the battle is on both of them. And so what I want to do over this the next few minutes here is give you some tangible ways to create peace in both. And to be able to apply them. And they're so simple.
Yeah.
And yet they're also their heart and mind searching. So that's what we're gonna do. How to get a peace in the mind and in the heart that comes from the source. And because the source is God, is Jesus, he's gonna be involved in the process.
Sure.
Because peace is a gift he gives. It's not something you conjure up.
It's good.
This is important that every podcast listener hears this. If you're going to have peace in your life, you cannot conjure it up. You cannot create it. Peace has a source.
Yeah.
And you tap into the source to get peace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for in our heart though, like let's start out. Like what do we need to do to have peace in our heart?
Okay, I'm going to give you two things. Okay. I think the first one, and you know, these really came from my process of living a peaceful life. I mean, it's an ongoing battle.
Sure.
Because the enemy, the world is always wanting to attack it. My children, and wife and friends. They all want to, because why I say that is that's life.
Yeah.
Life wants to steal peace.
Sure.
But I think the first thing to do is, number one, again, you have to go to the source, confess sin. Sin, and let me define sin for anybody who, sin is anything that you do that is contrary to what God's plan for you is. Anytime you do that, hold on to bitterness, don't forgive, think evil thoughts, let anxiety drive. Anytime you do something that would be contrary to how God would want you to live, that creates anxiety within your heart.
Yeah.
Because peace can only be found in God doing it His way.
Yeah.
Anytime you do the opposite, what are you going to get? You're going to get the antithesis of peace. Okay. And that is anxiety. And so when you confess it, and there's something powerful. It's not like you have to go to the priest to confess, or you have to stand in a certain way to confess, or you have to wear certain clothes to confess. You just say, God, I'm sorry that I haven't been to the dentist in 10 years because I'm scared of the dentist. I mean, there it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry that I lost my cool in that moment. I'm sorry that I said those words out of anger. The minute you begin to confess that sin, peace begins to rule in your heart. Why? Because it comes from the source.
Yeah.
Well, why does peace come? Because God forgives. I'll tell you a story. It's I just heard this story recently. I think I've cried almost every time. I get teary-eyed every time I tell it because it's so powerful. Because I think, let me before I tell the story, I want to make this statement.
Okay.
I think one of the things people struggle with in anxiety when it comes to confession of sin is the difference between guilt and shame. So this understanding guilt and shame is going to set up this story.
Okay.
Guilt, and anything you feel guilty for, confess to God.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there listening to this podcast and you're like, you're working out and like, I don't know, what I can confess about. Did you see I was on the treadmill when I was doing that? Or not the treadmill.
That's the elliptical.
The elliptical. And you get guilt about something that you did. Confess it to God. God, I'm sorry I did that.
Yeah.
Guilt is an understanding I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Shame is completely different.
Yeah.
Guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this, podcast listener. God never looks at you that you are a mistake.
Yeah.
So you can confess that sin.
Yeah.
And He wipes it away. And here's what that story proves. There was a lady who was having a vision in this town that she was talking to Jesus at nighttime.
Okay.
And so she went to her pastor and said, "Hey, it was like a priest, and she went to the priest and said, 'Hey, I'm having this vision that I'm talking to Jesus at night.'" And the priest goes, "Okay, whatever." And then the next day she came back and said, "I had another conversation with Jesus last night." And the priest was like, "Okay, whatever." And the third night she comes back and says, "I had another conversation with Jesus." And the priest is like, "Ooh, this lady's crazy." Yeah. And so the priest said to her, "Okay, if you're really talking to Jesus, ask Him, what was the last sin that I committed?" You ask Him that, and then I'll know, because I'll know what sin it was. Yeah. So the next day,
committed or confessed?
He said committed.
Oh.
And the next day, the lady comes up and or maybe it was confessed. I don't know on that one because maybe it was confessed. The last confession that I had or whatever. Yeah. And the lady comes up and said, "Hey, I talked to Jesus last night." And so a priest goes, "Okay, what was the last sin I confessed?"
Oh yeah.
And he goes, "Did you ask Jesus that? And she said, "Yes." He goes, "Okay, what did he say?" And she goes, Jesus said, "I don't remember." Because he forgets. Yeah. Not that he forgets, he separates as far as the east is from the west.
Yeah.
Forgiven.
Yeah.
I love that. And you know what? When you think about that, peace floods the heart. Yeah. It's where it comes from. So that's the first thing I would say. How do you get peace in the heart? You confess your sin. And then the second, go ahead.
I was processing my thoughts on the idea of shame. So it's fair to say that God would never want us to feel shame in our life.
It wouldn't be accurate. Are you a mistake in your life?
Right.
No. But do you make mistakes? Yes. God never wants you to feel shame, but he lovingly convicts. And why do I say lovingly brings conviction? Because conviction always leads to a better life if you listen to it.
Yeah.
God has a better way of doing life. And so he will have you feel by the power of the Spirit. He will have you feel some conviction in your heart for doing something wrong because he has something better for you.
Yeah.
But shame is when you beat yourself up. I'm terrible. I'm bad.
Yeah.
I'm horrible. I'm a loser. You did something wrong that God will forgive. But what does God call you?
Right.
My child. In relationship with him, you're my child. You're my son.
Yeah.
You're my daughter. That's powerful.
That's good.
Shame doesn't fit in that equation.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So
that's good.
I think the second thing to get peace of heart is you have to release angst. Release, and that's just the best way I know. Any angst, anything that grinds you against someone, release it. I come back to this one a lot in my podcast.
Yeah.
And we had that podcast entitled "Kill the Puppy."
Yeah.
Don't pick up offense. It's all the same stuff.
You need to be like Elsa. Just let it go.
There you go. You want to sing it?
No.
In your high voice? Let it clear the slate. I'm going to wake up this morning. You know what? I had ample opportunity yesterday to pick up angst from lots of people. I can't remember what they were today.
Yeah.
If I focus on it, I could try to remember. I'm going to clear the slate. I'm going to let it go. Angst just creates bitterness over time, and bitterness is literally me drinking poison hoping the other person dies. It just makes zero sense.
Right.
And so just release angst. And when you release angst, peace floods the heart. Confessing sin, releasing angst.
Yeah.
You live at peace.
That's good.
In the heart.
Yeah. That's only the first half, Kevin.
That's right, because the mind is still at war. I can release it in my heart, but the mind is still at war. It's a battlefront in two spots.
Yeah. I feel like for me personally, this is where I struggle the most. Is I get it in the heart pretty quick. I feel the emotions, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But my mind just keeps running through this
Interesting.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's go. For me, I would say the biggest battlefront. My mind is easy. I have to get my emotions into check.
Yeah.
But once I get my emotions into check, my mind falls quickly. That's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So I'm always having, and maybe that's why I focus on always saying, release the angst, release the angst, release the angst, because I know that's what's going to cause me the most stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
Is the angst. So I just whatever. That's I will say probably whatever 6 or 7 times a day. It's me releasing angst. I'm just not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
It will give me nothing. No point.
Yeah.
Okay. So mind, how do we fight the mind?
Yeah.
Okay. The mind is number one. You want peace in mind. You have to speak truth over lies. You have to speak truth over lies. Anxiety is a liar.
Yeah.
And it sounds so truthful.
Yeah.
Because the best lies are 99% truth.
Oof.
Oh, so they're hard to battle.
Yeah.
You're probably somebody's listening to this podcast right now, and I guarantee you, there is something that you believe with all of your mind, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to identify.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is you have to take that lie captive.
Yeah.
And you have to speak truth over it.
Yeah.
So I shared, by the way, I shared this concept of peace. We do family devotions. We do a family meal every year.
Once a year.
We do a family meal once a week. All my kids come back to the house that have left, and we do. Mom and I cook a bit. Tiffany and I'm not allowed to call her mom. Tiffany.
Wait, hold on.
No, I'm in trouble.
Why are you not allowed to call her mom?
Because her name is Tiffany.
Is this a you thing or a her thing?
No, it's a her thing 100%. I would call her mom all the time, but she doesn't like it. She goes, when it's you and me, I'm Tiffany.
Okay.
Because sometimes I'll be in the car with her.
Yeah.
It's just her and I. I'll go, hey, Mom. She goes, no, I'm not your mother.
That's fair.
But
you're allowed to say, go ask your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You don't say, go ask Tiffany.
Or when I'm when we're at the table with all the kids, and I'll go, hey, guys, hey, Mom, will you pass that? And that's fine. But my kids all like, she doesn't like it. So I need to call her Tiffany. Or there's other words I call her, I don't know, like.
Really?
Honey.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyways.
All right. Sorry.
I lost my
Truth
story.
over lies.
What did I say? What was it? How did mom even get into it?
I forgot what we were saying now. Where were we at?
I don't know.
Tanya, you got to keep us on track.
Family devotions.
Oh,
thank
family
you.
devotions.
Yeah, there you go. She'll keep us in track. So we were having this dinner. Tiffany and I will always cook a meal for the kids.
Yeah.
And then they come and we did a little family devotion. And I did this lesson.
Oh, good.
Practicing. I was talking about it with them and say, hey kids, here's what I want you to be aware of. And I was talking about truth over lies. And one of my daughters said, Dad, I want you to know how I do this. And I thought it was so good. She goes, I wrote down the lie on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And she goes, and then I drew a line under it. And then I started writing down all of the truths that beat up that lie. And as I wrote down the truths, the lie got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Wow.
And then it lost all the control that it had. That is good. And so I think there's something powerful about speaking truth.
Yeah.
Because we all believe in a lie.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to because anxiety is a great liar.
Yeah.
And when we can acknowledge it, we can speak truth to it.
Yeah.
Or when we confess it to others. Hey, this is something that I'm thinking, and then listen to the truth of the other person speak into my heart.
Yeah.
That can kill the lie. In fact, there's a verse in the Bible in James that says, confess your sins or your lies to one another so that you might be healed. There's a process of processing it out loud. Truth over lies.
Yeah.
Just I'm going to ask you a question here on the spot.
Okay.
But I think it might be helpful for our listeners.
Okay.
And I'll think if I can think of some. What are some lies that insecurity or anxiety, and I think insecurity, notice I just labeled it.
Yeah.
What are some lies that insecurity speaks?
I think one that a lot of us struggle with is I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
I think that's something that we're seeing a lot.
Yeah, true.
I'm not good enough for this. I'm not good enough for that. Or, and then we turn around and put the blame on other people. Today, what's happening today is we're putting the blame on other people when we feel that insecurity.
That's brilliant, Justin. Why there are some podcast listeners that won't confess? They don't even feel good enough to confess to Jesus.
Yeah.
And yet, it's not on your own power. That's powerful. That's the lie of insecurity. Yeah. Why even confess? You're never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Jesus is already good enough. That's the value point. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Insecurity, I think I have nothing to say. Well, say it anyways. Yeah. Or nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
Sure.
And you know what?
We don't have that problem.
We believe it. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And the truth is, there's probably people in your life that don't want to hear what you have to say.
Sure.
So you believe that for everybody. And there's where it's 30% true and you've believed the whole thing.
Yeah.
But 70% of it's a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is. And then I got one more. Otherwise, this podcast will go on forever. And that is, and this is going to be hard for some of you that are not Jesus followers, but I think it can be a good thing. You have to meditate on God.
Yeah.
That brings peace. Why? He's the source of peace.
Yeah.
So notice what I did there. I sandwiched it. The first one there, confess sin, you go to God. The second one, then you have to personally release angst. And then in the mind, you speak truth over lies, but then you end with going back to God.
Yeah.
He's the beginning and the end of your process of peace.
Yeah.
Okay. You meditate on God. You meditate on the power of his forgiveness.
Yeah.
You meditate on that you are loved by him.
Yeah.
You meditate that his mercies are new every morning. You meditate that he is strong and powerful and does miracles. When you start focusing on who God is and that he loves you and is for you and is with you and is working your circumstances, you'll sleep in the middle of the storm.
Yeah.
Because he's at peace. Yeah. That's the power. That's the power. And so that's what we do. In fact, I'm going to read and then we'll close. But I'll read Philippians 4. To me, it's the most used text I use when I'm talking with people who are going through storms. And this is what it says. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Then here it is. Tell God what you need and thank him for all that he has done. Now watch this. When you stop worrying, that means you put anxiety in the back seat and you stop listening to it.
Yeah.
You start praying, God, here's where I'm at and here's what I need. And then you recognize there's the meditate. You thank him for all that he's done. This is verse 7. Then you will experience God's peace. See, that's the formula.
Yeah.
Which exceeds anything you can understand. And what will this peace do? It will guard your heart and your mind as you live in Christ Jesus.
Such a good connection.
So I say to all of our podcast listeners, wherever you are today, peace, be still. And that will come from Jesus.
So good. So good. I love it. Hey, if you haven't already, just to transition us out of here, go ahead and be sure to subscribe to our podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google. We're still trying to figure out Stitcher.
Do we have Stitcher?
Yeah, we talked about that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Who uses it?
Yeah.
Well, and if you're on Instagram or Facebook, leave us some reviews. We got some Starbucks cards that we sent out. That was fun the last time.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to post content and behind the scenes stuff there. You can see what we look like when we're trying to point to our heart and we're actually pointing to our mind. And as always, your show notes or whatever you're listening to. Thanks for listening and feel free to share.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you today. I'm your host, Justin, for Kevin and myself. Thank you so much for listening to the LifenGeer podcast, where truth leads to joy and adventure.
Woo!